What's the actual cost of a thought? I don't mean in money. I mean in pure physical energy. It sounds like a sci-fi question, right? Well, today we're actually going to answer it. And in doing that, we're going to build a whole new way to think about intelligence itself. Everything from our own brains to the entire global economy. All right, let's get into it. You know, the world of AI is starting to speak a totally new language. And no, I'm not talking about Python. Seriously, forget about processing power or how big a data set is for a second. The biggest deals, the real currency for all that computational muscle, they're being signed in GigaWatt-hours, pure energy. It's a huge shift, and it tells you everything you need to know about where the real value and the real cost of AI is today. So that naturally leads to a really cool question, right? If we can slap an energy price tag on a giant AI model, can we do the same thing for us, for our own brains? Like, how many joules does it actually take to have an idea? And if we put them head to head, who wins the efficiency prize? The human brain, perfected over millions of years, or a brand new silicon chip? All right, so here's the game plan. We're going to go on this kind of cosmic journey, starting super small and zooming way out. First, we'll pin down the energy of a single idea. Then, we'll set up the scorecard, human versus AI. We'll talk about why the current balance is about to tip over, and then we'll zoom all the way out to see what this means for the whole economy and, our place in it.
Okay, first things first. If you want to compare two totally different things like a brain and a computer, you need a common measuring stick, right? We have to find the most basic, fundamental unit of a purposeful action. The source material has a great name for it, a quantum of intent. And that's where we're going to start.
So how do we even find a number for that?
Well, we start with the absolute bottom, the floor set by the laws of physics. There's this thing called Landauer's principle, and it basically says there's a minimum energy cost just to erase one bit of information. It's tiny, 0.018 electron-volts. Now let's look at biology. The fuel that powers our cells, this ATP reaction, it releases about 0.3 electron-volts. And what's just mind-blowing is how close those two numbers are. Life is operating just a hair's breadth above the absolute physical limit. It's ridiculously efficient, like 200 times more efficient than our best silicon transistors right now.
Okay, so based on what life actually uses, like the energy it takes to capture a single photon of light during photosynthesis, we can set a really practical standard unit. So for the rest of this discussion, we're going to use 1 electron volt, or 1 eV. Let's call that our quantum of intent. Just think of it as one single, purposeful, tiny little action at the nanoscale.
All right, we've got our measuring stick. Now for the fun part. Let's start measuring. We're going to take our 1 eV unit and see how many it takes to power a human thought versus how many it takes for an AI to spit out a word.
And this is the big reveal. When you actually run the numbers, something completely wild pops out. To produce a single token, which is just a basic unit of output, the human brain burns through about 10 to the power of 18 electron volts. That's a quintillion eV, a massive number. But get this, the cost for a good AI model to generate one of its tokens, basically a single word, it's pretty much the same. Right now, in this very specific moment in time, we're at a dead heat. There's an energy parity between a human thought and an AI word. But, and this is a huge but, we've got to be super careful here. Not all tokens are created equal. Not even close. See, that human token is a really complex thought. It's pulling in memories, context, what you're seeing and hearing, the whole shebang. The AI token is just a statistically generated word. So let me say that again because it's important. Right now, AI is spending the same amount of energy to produce one simple word that our brain spends to create an entire, rich, complex idea. Okay, to make this feel a bit more real, try this analogy. The amount of energy an AI needs to generate, say, 150 words, that's about the same amount of physical work it takes to lift a 2-pound bag of sugar from the floor up to your waist. So we're not talking about some abstract microscopic number here. Both brains and AI are using real, significant amounts of energy to do what they do. So yeah, we're in this fascinating moment of parity, but it is just that, a moment. It's specific, and it's definitely not going to last. The trends we're seeing show that this balance is about to get completely shattered. And here's the reason why it's so fragile. Our hardware, the human brain, is amazing. It's the product of millions of years of evolution. It's super, super efficient, but it's pretty much as good as it's gonna get. It's static.
AI, meanwhile, is on one of those crazy hockey stick growth curves. It's getting better, both in hardware and software, at an exponential pace. Let's dig into that a little. Our hardware, our brain, it's locked in. AI hardware, GPUs, TPUs, all that stuff, it's constantly changing, getting better, co-evolving with the software. And then there's our operating system, our way of thinking. That evolves, but really slowly, through culture. The AI's OS, it gets huge, compounding upgrades with every single new algorithm, every new model. It's like a race where one person is standing still and the other is strapping themselves to a rocket. Okay, so this massive growing efficiency gap, it's not just some nerdy technical detail. It has huge, real-world implications. So now, let's do that zoom out I promised and see how this all connects to a completely new way of looking at the economy. So here's the big idea from the source material, a new, maybe more fundamental way to measure a company's value. It's called joules per unit of output. Just forget about profit margins and stock prices for a minute. The core idea is that you can measure how truly advanced a company is by looking at one simple thing. How much energy does it take them to make one of their things, whether that's a physical product or a digital service? And that's not as abstract as it might sound. Think about a classic Adam Smith pen factory. You've got two factories. If one of them uses fewer joules of energy to make one single pen, then it has a real, measurable, fundamental advantage. It's just a more sophisticated machine. The exact same thing applies today. A data center that can do more calculations per joule of electricity is fundamentally more valuable. And that brings this whole thing home, doesn't it? This new way of looking at the economy through energy forces us to ask a really personal question. In a world with super efficient AI, what's our value? Where does human intelligence fit in? Okay, the core problem is what we can call an energy gap. It's actually really simple. The fuel for AI, electricity, is just way, way cheaper than the fuel for us humans, food. That simple fact could make a lot of human labor just not worth it economically. So what do? The idea is that our value has to shift. It's no longer about doing the work, but about defining the work. We become the ones who create the intent, who set the goals, who act as the final judge on whether what the AI did was actually what we wanted. And that leaves us with the final, and maybe the biggest, question of all. This new reality points toward a world of incredible efficiency, of automated abundance. But the great challenge of our time might not be creating all that incredible value. It might be figuring out how we're going to distribute it. And that's the question this whole energy framework really puts on the table for all of us.